Right, it is 3 o'clock. I'm going to call the August 25th, 2021 Urban Design Commission meeting to order. My name is Lee Peoples. I'm the chair of the commission. The following guidelines are in place for meetings in the council chamber at City Hall. Only the south entrance to City Hall is open for access to the building. For exiting the building, all accesses can be used. Air purifying machines have been installed in the chamber. Hand sanitizer machines and face masks are available. When called on, applicants and speakers will come to the podium to speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium, speak into the microphone, identify yourself, give us your name and address for the record when you begin speaking. Address your comments to the commission. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Citizens may address the commission on agenda items by responding to chair's call for speakers during discussion on each item and signing the speaker's log on the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item being heard. The chair or presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the commission and/or remove that person from the chambers if that person commits disorderly or disruptive behavior. Please refer to the meeting agenda for more information about these requirements. If you parked in the Sheridan Walker garage, staff can give you parking validation. The agenda and documents are located on PrimeGov. Would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Peoples.
Here.
Commissioner Uday. Commissioner Blatt.
Here.
Commissioner Charnico.
Here.
Commissioner Guillory. Commissioner Holmes. Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Varnum. That completes the roll call, Mr. Chair. You have quorum.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the July 28th, 2021 meeting. Are there any corrections or a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Looks like we have a motion by Blatt and waiting on that second to show up from Guillory. Okay, cast your votes. The minutes of that meeting are approved. We have no cases withdrawn, no continuance requests. We do have a couple of items on the consent docket, and staff would like to make a comment before we get to that.
Yes, Commissioners, on item 5B on the consent docket today, we received a change in the color on one of the two buildings in that project. This is for the CMU block building, not the Quonset hut. They're changing it from the Flint black color that's in your packet to a color that's called Whitest White by Kelly Moore. There's a sample on each end of the dais. And I just want to make sure that you had that, you were aware of that change in color before you voted on the consent document.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to request consideration of an item on the consent docket? Any member of the public want to request consideration of items on the consent docket? Not hearing any. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on the consent docket?
I'll put forward a motion to approve the items on the consent docket.
Motion by Charnico,
I'll second.
Second.
second by Miller. May have to do that again. Yeah, there we go. You may have to second again. Okay, cast your votes. The consent docket is approved. Moving on to item 6A, cases for individual consideration, UDC A21-1. Staff, could you introduce that item to us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is an item that was before the commission earlier this year, back in February, where they had a certificate of approval, UDCA 21-00001, approved by the commission for the construction of a two-story house at the northwest corner of North Hotel and Northwest 8th Street. In their efforts to commence construction on the project, they come to the realization that the property owner to the north has constructed part of his driveway and part of a carport cover over the property line on the north side of this lot. The applicants engaged legal services to attempt to get those improvements removed. The adjacent property owner to the north has claimed prescriptive easement rights over the part of the lot where these improvements lie. And because of that, the applicants have basically exhausted their legal remedies to have those improvements removed. And they're asking now instead for a variance to the setback on Northwest 8th Street, basically moving the house 6 feet to the south and 6 feet closer to Northwest 8th Street. This would put it out of the range of existing setbacks of the structures along the north side of Northwest 8th Street, and therefore they would require a variance to be able to put that house closer to the street than what the rest of the houses on that side of the street are. That completes our presentation. Prepared to respond to any questions the commission may have.
Questions for staff? If the applicant is present, we'd welcome you to come up and make comments.
Sure, briefly. David Box, 522 Colford Drive. The applicants are here with us as well. As staff indicated, at the time of closing, there was a encroachment that was not accounted for and my client was unaware of. As they got deeper in and surveys were completed, it became apparent that there was approximately a 6 feet encroachment into this lot from the north property line. There were steps taken to try to remove the encroachment. That is not going to be successful for a multitude of reasons. So what we're asking you to do today, we haven't changed the design at all. To change the design and cut 6 feet out, we think will create a product that will be problematic. We lose almost 20% of our footprint. So we're simply asking the product you already approved to be able to be slid approximately 6 feet to the south. We have filed a concurrent application to be heard by the Board of Adjustment, but we need to come here first to have you provide a recommendation. Staff in their staff report does indicate that it is outside the range, but does state that it will not adversely impact surrounding properties or the overall character of the district. So we think this will still allow for a wonderful product, and a product, of course, that this body approved. We just found a challenge that we weren't aware of at the time of closing, and we need some relief. And so the process to get the relief is to come here and then the Board of Adjustment. So we'd ask for your recommendation and be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I was curious, was a survey not done before closing that would have discovered the encroachment?
So not to the detail that we needed. The lawsuit is still pending on certain aspects of it, so I can't get into some of it. However, it was not readily apparent that it was there based upon the documents that we had in our possession at the time.
So the staff report says legal options had been suspended, but you mentioned there is a lawsuit pending.
So there were cross claims filed. We have withdrawn our claims. We dismissed all of our claims. The other side is trying to extract money from my client. And so even though the claims are now moot and that all of the remedies that they sought in their cross claims have been satisfied, they're unwilling to dismiss their claims, seeking to extract money from my client. So our side of the lawsuit is done and is moot based upon our willingness to quitclaim deed the encroached portion. Even though my client's willing to quitclaim deed, they're trying to extract money. So there's something hanging out there. It's not our claim.
You've already deeded that land. Was there a trial on a trespass or some sort of ejecting them from that land, or how did that wind up?
Let me think how to answer this. Through discovery, we became convinced that our claim would not be successful.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Discussion among the board? Any members of the public that are here that would like to speak to this, please come up and give us your name and address.
Hi, my name is Steve Mason. I reside at 824 Northwest 8, about half a block east of the applicant's proposal. And also, just through my recent career, we've restored and respected 38 historic buildings, honoring the integrity of our neighborhoods in this urban core. You know, my house had the same problem, and I was fortunate. I had a prescriptive easement, and I was able to make peace with my neighbors and buy the land. So I sympathize with these guys, and the design is beautiful. You know, Chairman Peoples, it's curious to me, as you said, where was the survey, where was the title insurance, and if that had occurred, we wouldn't be here today. You'd have a title insurance claim. So the UDC is being asked to deal with an applicant's lack of title insurance, lack of an adequate survey. The UDC has considered setbacks in this neighborhood numerous times and defended the setbacks. Most recently, as Mr. Philbrook said, on this land in February of this year. And I'm not an architect, but I think apparently setbacks matter, and the houses honoring each other, how they address the street matters. And I just have to question why the UDC has to fix an applicant who didn't get a title insurance or a survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to comment on this item? Sure.
With all due respect to Mr. Mason, it's slightly more complicated than that. We're not asking you to fix a lapse in my client's abilities. There was something that simply wasn't known at the time, and there is an avenue to do it, and I would point you to, again, your staff report. It won't adversely impact the surrounding properties or the overall character of the district. We tried everything. We tried to buy the house. We tried to buy 6 feet. We tried to buy the entirety of their property. We tried to give them cash. There was simply no way to remedy this except for the avenue that we seek today. This is why we have a Board of Adjustment process, and we're simply seeking the relief to allow for what we think will be a better product as is than modifying it with that 6-foot setback. I think that becomes a bigger problem, and you have an awkward product when you lose 20% of the square footage. We think this is the path that creates the least impact and allows for a product that is going to be, I think, very successful for the neighborhood to move forward.
Discussion among the commissioners?
Do we have a good site plan that is available for this? I see in the handouts there is,
The first page after the application. I have a copy of it here.
okay, yeah, I have that one. I was just, is that the only one we have? Yeah. Thank you.
And we don't have this came up a couple of years ago on 7th Street, and I don't know if it's the applicant or staff did a study of the block showing the range, and there was that house at 7th and Dewey. I don't know if that's in here somewhere, or we just don't have that on this project.
I believe the staff report does list the range of setbacks along the block. We don't have, I don't know if we have it
Oh.
graphically, or maybe Michael does.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
The staff report says that the setback ranges from 14.6 feet to 17.35 feet, and this proposed structure would be a setback of 8 feet 8 inches. Or would be 8 feet 8 inches outside the range of that, the established line of setbacks. And that is on page 3 of the staff report.
Well, in looking at this and thinking back to that one that we spent a lot of time on back in 2018 on Dewey and 7th, yeah, I went back and looked at the documents on that. That one originally was only 3.8 feet outside of the setbacks, and on that one, this is the house that was on the corner, and they had a fence, or no, the house was actually there, I believe. Anyway, the staff report said that it was too much, and it had a couple paragraph discussion about why and the purpose of the setbacks. And the applicant eventually agreed to move the house within the range. I think there was a small brick wall that might have been a foot or so, or part of the house might have been a foot or something. This is several years ago, but yeah, they agreed to move it. And now we have a proposal that is 8 feet, 8 inches beyond the setback. I think it is a serious issue for the neighborhood. It is a regulation. It's not something that we really have discretion on. I don't think it's fair to the other houses on the block. This is resetting the setback very dramatically. Other houses, newer houses, have been built down the street that respected the setback. And I think now, when you come to this intersection, you see that. It's pretty jarring to have a house, you know, almost 9 feet out of line with the rest of them. And, you know, it's also, I don't really know, the staff report mentions a hardship. Seems like to me that was something, you said that the survey was inaccurate. Just looking at it, you can see there's a fence there. You know, it's not like maybe just dirt that you didn't know. You know, I also think it would be better to have fully pursued the legal remedies until coming to us. You know, it could have been tried and determined if, in fact, they did have prescriptive easement or something else. So it's not something that I can really support. It's not consistent with what we've been doing with setbacks in the Cottage District.
May I briefly?
Sure.
You keep saying it's 8 feet 8 inches outside of the range. That is, the setback is 8 feet 8 inches. It's 6 feet out of the range.
Okay.
It's not 8 feet 8 inches outside of the range. So, and I guess you can second, you know, armchair quarterback my legal theories in the case that you haven't read all you want. However, the discovery was very clear that there was not an avenue to be successful on the claims that we needed.
So it's not 8 feet out. I just want
No,
to be
I
accurate.
read that incorrectly.
Okay.
The setback that's proposed is 8 feet 8 inches, which is just a smidge over 6 feet more than the next closest
Okay,
setback.
okay.
So yes, it would be a difference of about 6 feet.
Okay.
The setback is 8 feet 8 inches, so my apologies.
Okay, I see.
I have a question for staff. We're looking at, I mean, this is 901 North Francis, so what we're discussing here is a side yard setback, is that right?
No, we're talking about the front yard setback on 8th Street.
Okay, so if it's a 901 North Francis address, wouldn't the 8th Street setback be the side yard?
The way the setbacks are drafted in the cottage district, if you have a corner lot, your setbacks on both street frontages have to be in the range of the setbacks on both streets.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other discussions? Any questions for the applicant? I do have another question for the applicant. Did you engage the neighbors at all that live down the street to get any opinions from them?
No, I mean,
Okay.
the first time we thought that there was an issue is when Mr. Mason stepped to the podium. Typically in these types of cases, there will be letters, and I mean, in your neighborhood, you're not bashful in submitting letters. So had we seen any letters, we would have, of course, reached out.
Yeah. Is there any interest in talking with Mr. Mason or other members of the neighborhood? I mean,
Why don't you hear?
could you want to come up and give us your name and address, please?
Grant Willoughby, one of the owners, developers.
Yeah.
And we spoke with Kevin Lee, who was head of the neighborhood association multiple times. And he had a neighborhood meeting and said that no one, and Mr. Mason, I'm sorry you weren't there potentially, but whoever was at the meeting, they had no issues with what we were proposing with a variance. So I have an email from him, happy to read it, forward it, whatever you all would like. But we have truly vetted every single process we feel that we could before coming here. So they were in favor. They thought that they noticed the encroachment, thought that it shouldn't be there, didn't seem like it had been there that long. So they are in favor. They would like to see that piece of property developed. And if we're not able to get the variance, it will seriously, seriously hinder the type of structure that we can even put on it or render it undevelopable.
And this is the Sosa Neighborhood Association?
He was the kind of president of the Sosa Neighborhood Association.
Okay,
His name was Kevin Lee for sure, yeah. It's Kevin
Okay.
Lee.
okay,
So we'd spoken with him a couple times and then emailed back and forth, and then he had a talk amongst the neighbors and no one seemed to have any issues.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
We got a little bit of a unique situation, and I would agree that anytime that this has been in any way conversational, there's usually a large number of individuals here who are willing to speak on both sides. I appreciate the conversations that we have had, but I do think it would be beneficial in order to move forward to hear some support and consent of those who are directly and immediately adjacent affected. Is there any harm in, and you'd have to, I mean, this is a question to you, in continuing to receive something that could be put on. Now, it would be immediately, because it would probably be just a letter that could be put on the next.
When's the next meeting?
Yeah, that's the
September 22nd.
Say it again?
September 22nd.
2nd or 7th?
22nd,
2/2, okay.
fourth Wednesday.
And how does that work with the Board of Adjustments and all the other schedules that would be associated with it? Your requirement for submission would be by,
Well, I'm not sure that there's going to be any new submittals required.
a letter
Well,
in support.
yeah, we could have that in a week or so.
But before we make a decision on that, do you mind if I read this? This is the email from Kevin Lee, 8th and Francis, to Mr. Willoughby. I apologize for not responding sooner, but I did discuss your issue with the board about the encroachment by the neighbor. I still can't believe he can get away with that. I saw where he added the front section of the carport, but nothing notes a survey anywhere. Regardless, since the house will face Francis, I don't see where you should have to line up with the cottages on Northwest 8th, as it lays differently. It will line up with the townhomes being built across Francis between us. No one seemed to disagree on the board or have issues with the variance. Good luck. Now, so I mean, anecdotally, that's Mr. Liu who claims he's gone and talked to all these people and the board itself. And as you know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I sat at this podium with, you know, what felt like the entirety of the neighborhood. So the fact that there's no one here tells me that I don't know that there is any concern. But I mean, we don't want to get denied. So if that's what it's going to take to get approved, then so be it. But we feel like we've done everything we can.
The other option would be, if there was a motion in favor contingent upon that document being delivered in support of, is that any?
I mean, to me, there's a lot of what-ifs about what that document would contain, like every neighbor. I mean, it's probably too far to require every single neighbor on the block to agree to that. You know, we do have one neighbor here. There is one person that's opposed. You know, I think the neighborhood is not large, but it's more than just 8th Street. And so, you know, if the people along, or a number of people along 8th Street were fine with it, I would be more inclined to support it. So I would be fine with the continuance to specifically speak to the people that it would impact, which is the people to the west on 8th Street. I'd be fine with that.
So, I mean, and I guess we can do that. What I'd say is they received notice, right? So it's not like they don't know that this is happening. They received notice. They didn't have to be here. It's hard to come down here, but it's easy to send an email because your notice tells you all the steps to take. Typically in zoning and these types of cases, the absence of protest tells us that the people are at least okay with it. It's much harder to get people to say proactively, yes, I'm for it, or come down here and say I'm for it. By not saying I'm against it, it's typically viewed as a acquiescence to what's happening.
Well, again, we have person behind you that there is one. And
There
we've
is
got-
one.
And
Yes,
we've got,
in the 100 block over.
yeah. So I think that's important, but that's my position. Certainly others on the commission, please, if you have other thoughts, other approaches.
How does this setback compare to the townhome setbacks further down 8th Street?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Yes, the townhome, there's my mic on. The townhome setbacks a little further down 8th Street.
They would have been based on the existing structures at the time of the approval on the block between Francis and Chartel, not this block.
Okay. Do we know what those setbacks are?
Off the top of my head, I could not tell you, no.
I believe they're pushed towards the street. Is there a way to check files, or I'm sure you don't have?
Not any files I have with me, no.
Mr. Mason, did you have something else?
I would like to respond to two of Mr. Box's comments. The public notice I received was faulty. You click on the website, it shows no agendas for this year. So I think there's a problem with the public notice process. It's not working. So I had to contact city staff, who sent me to another website to even find the application today. So to Mr. Box's comment, read the public notice, go to the website. It doesn't work. So I don't think we had public notice. Second of all, to his comment about the board, I get the agendas. I read them. I don't go to the meetings. And nowhere on the agenda did it say this matter would be considered. And I'll bet Mr. Box and Nickel, none of the board members live in this area we're discussing on that block. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would be in support of continuing this.
Of a continuance?
Yeah, and contingent upon that being acceptable
Yeah,
to the.
of course. Is that something that would be acceptable, a continuance? So, we'll entertain a motion on this. Motion to continue
Second?
to the next meeting, which is September 22nd. Got a motion by Blatt, just waiting for PrimeGov, and a second by Guillory. Cast your votes. Okay, that passed. That is continued. Yes. Yeah.
We will check the notice and the link that's been included in emails and see if there's something that needs to be adjusted. Thank you for letting us know.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes items for individual consideration. We have no other business. We have several communications, 7 items. Does anyone have any questions for staff on any of these communications? Okay, next item would be comments from planning staff. Okay. Next would be comments from commissioners. Do we have any idea if they're going to put the plexiglass back in here?
I'll look to our city clerk staff to see if, do you know if they've discussed putting the plexiglass barriers back up?
I was just curious. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Our next meeting is Wednesday, September 22nd, and we are adjourned.
So, okay.
We can.
Well, there was no sign-up sheet for after the talk?
Well, we don't have a time for people to comment generally.
Okay.
But if we're here and.
Yeah, just to see it for painting buildings. My name's Jeff Struble, 11 Northwest 15th. We had 2, and I'm maybe a little bit, because they're both under the consent docket, but I thought they had to, because of the painting of the building, they had to be brought up for a full, cost on it, which Michael didn't. We didn't have to pay a full cost on painting buildings that are already painted. But I've had a lot of tenants in the Plaza District that have smaller spaces, and to go through to change the color of the outside of a building that's already painted, I wanted to see what different options, we would have.
I'm going to have to rely on staff on that detail.
Well, the key to requiring a CA is if you do anything that causes an exterior modification. So we are a little bit liberal in that in terms of repainting. So if you were to repaint, if you have a white building and you repaint it white or some color that's very close to that white that's on the building already, we would consider that ordinary maintenance and repair, and we would not require a certificate of approval. However, if you have a blue building and you're going to paint it green, that exceeds the 20%, and you're going to paint the whole building, that exceeds the 20% threshold that allows us to approve CAs administratively. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it's required to go to the commission because it's over 20%.
So that's what I was wanting to see, what could be done about this, because I have a lot of tenants that move into a small space. They want to make it their own. It's a 25-foot building. They want to paint the outside, and then that requires them to do a full CA, which, like I said, on these 2, Michael did just do the administrative approval price, and I think that I want to see what could be done on it. Now, if a building hasn't been painted, now I see that's a different story, but to change a color on a building, I think that's extreme for somebody to have to do an application that how I understand, there's nothing, any color can be used, but they have to come before this board to change a color on a building. I was just seeing, and maybe that's something Susan could, address. I don't know what would be the process in making that just administrative approval if a building's already painted.
Sure.
Now, if it had, so what are your thoughts on that, or what?
Well, I'd like to just ask staff, maybe, I know that it seems like we're always revising, and I'm not sure where we are in the process in terms of revising the guidelines.
So we don't have any revisions specific to Urban Design Commission in process right now. There is a code update underway, but that's going to be a long ways out before that comes through. I think staff recognizes that this is a challenge for property owners, and that often it feels a little much to make someone come to the commission for simply repainting an already painted building in an equally appropriate color. But as we understand it, it would require an amendment to the ordinance to change that wording about making those kinds of changes. So we would just need to look at whether that was something we wanted to, whether that and, any other changes wanted to be taken through separately, or if we're going to wait and roll that into other efforts that are underway.
Well, thanks for bringing
Or
it
if
to us.
legal
I
has a
mean, we'll-
completely different interpretation and can tell us that we
Yeah.
don't have to do it anymore.
So from this point, like what would, because like I said, with a lot of our small businesses, that's a big burden for them. I had one of my tenants say, hey, I was going to paint that front of my building for $500. And then time he goes through the whole process, he can't afford to do it. So I'm like, well, and I can, so I was just wanting to bring that up to the board to think about, see what your take is on that, and to what process we get in the motion to make that easier for the small businessmen or, people, that want to change the color of an already painted building. So,
Okay, thank you. We appreciate the input.
thank you.